All right. Whoo! Intense movie. So this is the ending, well, my interpretation of the ending discussion, and definitely spoilers ahead. So if y'all haven't seen this movie yet, you don't want it spoiled for you. If you're going to watch it, it is quite a disturbing graphic film, like I did warn in my movie review. Maybe check out my movie review first, which is spoiler free. I'll link that at the end of this video. It should also be the one just before this one, because I'm planning on uploading these simultaneously. But this is spoilers about the end and my interpretation, because this movie, the end especially, is it's a fantastic film, because there's so much opportunity for interpretation. Like, I feel it's filled with allegories and with a lot of symbolic metaphors, and the end is even more so leaning towards that side, but it's also open to interpretation, I think. Now, what I think is actually happening is, in the end, in the final so-called incident, we see Jack, who's come up with this crazy idea. He's kidnapped a group of men, and he's chained them all together in his freezer, and their heads are kind of lined up together. And what he's trying to do is replicate an old Nazi technique where they began running out of ammunition and started coming up with experiments to kill more people with less ammo, so with one bullet. So what he's put all these heads together, a group of gentlemen's heads together in his freezer, and he's going to attempt to use one bullet to pierce through all of their heads using a full metal jacket bullet. Now, the problem is, the box that says full metal jacket bullets is filled with hunting type bullets, and this is when Jack goes down to the store trying to get a full metal jacket bullet. So he comes across some obstacles along the way, but long story short, let's get back into the freezer. He gets his one full metal jacket bullet, and at this point so he loads up his gun, and he can't focus on the heads because it's too close to his victims. So what he does is, there's this back door that he couldn't open the entire time in his freezer. He finally opens the back door, he moves to the back and gets a clear shot, and then we see Verge in human form. Now, this is where things might get a bit confusing, because we were under the impression that Verge was just a voice in his head, someone that he spoke to in his own mind. And that doesn't mean that anything changes there. He just might be seeing Verge in his human form himself, but that doesn't mean he actually exists. Now, I think this freezer, the actual freezer itself, where he was trying to shoot these men, represents his mind. You know, when he got sloppy outside in the real world, or when he didn't, when he kind of veered away from that OCD type feeling and took more risks and didn't clean up the crime scene and left blood out there, the freezer is a mess. It becomes a mess. So I think it represents his mind, and he couldn't open up that whole door the entire movie. He mentioned it a couple times, or a few times, and now finally he opened it with all of his might, using a pole, trying to actually get a good view to focus in and shoot these men. Now, I think the back freezer somehow represents or symbolizes his conscience, his subconscious and moral conscience. So whatever Verge is supposed to symbolize, whether it be his subconscious in general or his moral subconscious, call it what you will, but I think he's somehow related to his subconscious. And I think opening up that door, he's finally released some feelings of remorse, some emotional remorse, and also an emotional subconscious that we haven't seen Jack feel throughout the entire film. He's never felt any remorse at all, and I think the back door of the freezer finally symbolizes the release of a moral conscience. Now, this is where things get a bit weird, and it relates to a poem of Dante's Inferno, a 14th century poem where Dante is guided by a Roman poet named Virgil. Now, see the similarity there? Verge, Virgil. So I think that we're definitely spot on with the relation to the poem of Dante's Inferno here. And Virgil guides Dante through these different circles of hell. And with all of the failures that Jack has faced with his architecture, he could not for the life of him build a house successfully. Like throughout the film, we see him knock over the materials in a house, and he tries different materials. He cannot be an architect, and Verge suggests to him to change his materials. So all of a sudden he comes up with the bright idea of building his own house inside the freezer with all the corpses that he has stored in there. So this freezer he has is filled with corpses that he's stored throughout his 12-year killing spree, and makes this really odd-shaped looking house out of the corpses. And then we see Verge admire the house and move in under the corpses, or what may be the front door. He ducks his head and goes into the house and asks Jack whether he's coming. Now this is where things get really weird, because when Jack enters his little corpse house, he notices a hole in the floor. And at the same time, the police are trying to break down the door to the freezer to try and arrest him or kill him or whatever. They're onto him. They know that he's in there. They're out to get him. And there's a gunshot. Now, I don't know whether what follows is actually just in Jack's mind and he's actually been killed by the gunshot. But I did notice that he notices the hole before the police actually access the freezer and fire off any shots. So maybe that's just in his mind as well, but I don't think realistically a hole can exist in the floor unless you want to get really supernatural now and that Verge is some kind of higher power and open up the hole. I just think that it's symbolic in some way, and possibly Jack was killed by the gunshot and he was just having the vision of the hole before the gunshot. I'm not too sure there, but either way, this is where it relates to Dante's Inferno and Virgil, or Verge in this case, taking the person through the circles of hell. And there's all types of beautiful cinematography that happens during these scenes. It's obviously in a higher power state. This isn't like realistic, because they travel through a bubble and like it's like all slow motion, and Jack is having visions of those guys with the scythes cutting through the grass and stuff, something that he remembers. It's like an early childhood memory. We also notice that for the first time, Jack shows some kind of emotion, and he sheds a tear of moral emotion once he's obviously in the circles of hell here. It's the first time that we've seen this, so I'm still thinking that the back freezer opened up some sort of subconscious with Verge and a moral subconscious there, 100%. But as to whether or not Jack is actually still alive, and whether that gunshot killed him or whether it didn't, and whether this is just playing out in his mind, it's open up to interpretation. It could be something magical, and Verge is actually some sort of being that's just taken him on this journey through the circles of hell, possibly, because Verge was already guiding him before the gunshots were fired. So I don't know at what stage Jack might have been killed. It's definitely a difficult one, but you all have to watch it and then let me know in the comments below what you all think. But that's my interpretation there. I've got to go back and watch it. I've only watched it the once and just flicked through a few bits and pieces just for the sake of this discussion and my review earlier on. But it's just one of those films that like leaves things open for different types of interpretations from different viewers, and that's what I love. I can't wait to watch it again and just review and read on the forums what people are saying about the ending and what their thoughts are. But that's my thoughts in a nutshell. I'm not quite happy with it there. I want to go back and watch the end scene definitely a few more times, and then maybe I'll upload a new video with some new thoughts. But at this stage, I'm kind of leaning towards that. It could change drastically depending on what I notice or what I start thinking about, or if I watch it with someone and get someone's opinions on it. My thoughts may change drastically, but that's pretty much what I think about the ending. That's my explanation for the time being. So thank you all for tuning in. If you haven't watched my review of the film, check that out. It's spoiler free. Otherwise, don't forget to subscribe. Keep watching all of my movie trailer reaction videos, my movie reviews, and of course Diablo 3 and other gaming type content is going to keep coming at you. I love you all. Your creepy uncle. For now, out.